Hey guys, welcome to Sports Talk with Cam. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my week 1 predictions. Let's get started. So on Thursday, I have Detroit at Kansas City, and I do think Kansas City is going to pull away and not absolutely destroy them. I do think Detroit will score some touchdowns and maybe even get a hold on defense, but we're talking the Kansas City team that won the Super Bowl last year and MVP Mahomes. You can't disrespect that, so I think they're going to beat the Lions. Next up, I have Carolina at Atlanta, and if you give me Bryce Young, the first overall pick, and you give me Desmond Ridder, give me Bryce Young every single time. And I'm not saying I love Bryce Young so much. I just do think that he's better than Desmond Ridder. And I think even though he didn't look super good in preseason, I think he'll come back and he'll win the game for Carolina. Next up, I have the Bengals at the Browns, and I think Cincinnati not destroy, but win by a pretty large margin. And the reason I say that is because they just have such a better roster. And as I said, I am not a Deshaun Watson believer, but I am a Joe Burrow believer, and he will thread and shred that Browns defense. Even though they have Myles Garrett, Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion, and he's going to stay that way, and he's going to destroy the Browns. Next up, I have Jacksonville at Indianapolis, and I do not know about Jonathan Taylor. I do know that Anthony Richardson is starting, but he didn't look too good in preseason. And the other Colts team, I mean, their defense, they don't have many players. Who do they even have? DeForest Buckner. Their offense, too, don't have many good wide receivers. Not trying to put too much hate on the Colts. I just don't think they're going to beat the Jaguars. And I think T-Law, Kristen Kirk, and their defense is going to hold up against the Colts and destroy them. Next up, I have Tampa Bay at Minnesota. And there's no surprise. I mean, maybe it's a surprise to you guys, but Minnesota has Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, which now that I watch quarterback, I think he's a actually pretty nice quarterback, and I think he'll maybe even lead the Vikings to the NFC Championship. But I can't say the same with Tampa. They have Baker Mayfield. If you have Baker Mayfield on your roster and he's your starter, your team is automatically doo-doo. I'm not trying to put too much hate on Baker, but I just don't think he will lead them to a Super Bowl, or not even in the next couple years. The Bucks need to find a good quarterback, not a stinky one, and then they'll have a shot at beating the Vikings. Next up is Tennessee at New Orleans. And I think Derek Carr, New Orleans, is going to win that game. I'm not trying to say that Titans are bad. I just think the Saints are better. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, a healthy Michael Thomas and a good Chris Olave makes a really good wide receiver duo. And the Titans do have DeAndre Hopkins, but I don't know about their quarterback. They drafted Will Levis in the second round. They have Malik Willis, and they have Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is old, and I don't know how he's been doing, but I don't think he's a starter. I think it's between Malik and Will, and I don't know about those two. Next up, I have San Francisco at Pittsburgh. And people are saying, oh, it's a trap game. And they might be right. But everyone knows that is watching this video, the Niners are not worse than the Steelers. And even if you're a Steelers fan watching this, I'm telling you, Steelers fans, you know too. The Niners are better than you, and Brock Purdy is going to cook you. They're going to absolutely cook you. And I'm not saying we're going to destroy him, even though we probably are. The Niners just have a stacked roster. And I'm not being biased. They do. They have a Debo, McCaffrey, Purdy, and I hate to say this, but they did trade away Trey to the Cowboys. And I thought that was a horrible trade. Because what did we get? Like a fourth, a fifth? Like a one draft pick? Like a fourth? Like, what are we doing? Like, if Brock gets hurt, we all saw how Sam Darnold played. He didn't play too well. We're going to have Sam Darnold lead us to a Super Bowl? No, I don't think so. So, I think Trey does have potential, but now that he's not on our team, I can't talk amazing about him. He's on the Cowboys, and I do not love the Cowboys, so I can't talk a lot about him. But on the Steelers side, George Pickens, I think, is a average wide receiver. I think he did pretty good last year. And they can score a couple touchdowns on our number one defense. And I also want to say that they have not signed Nick Bosa yet. And rumors were going out, he might go somewhere in the AFC. He might get signed this week. That hasn't happened. He's probably going to get signed in the next few days. I'm not too worried about it. But I mean, a lot of people have been talking about this for a while. Like, the season is coming up this week, and what happens if he doesn't sign? Like, that, our defense is going to go from top to mid. Like, we still have Fred Warner, we still have that good secondary, but Nick is the leader of that defense. Next up, I have Arizona at Washington, and Arizona is going to be the worst team in the league. They're saying Kyler Murray won't even, maybe he won't even play that season, and the guaranteed money, all of that, I don't want to get into that, but the Cardinals, I don't want to say this, but they just suck so bad. Like, their running back is James Conner, and I think James Conner is not too good. I think their wide receivers are not too good. Like, they have AJ Green, Rondale Moore. Like, maybe your wide receiver core with AJ Green would be good like 10 years ago. Not now. And I think Rondale Moore, he's small, but he's fast. And maybe when I think max they're winning like 5 games. I am not a believer in them this season. But then we have Washington. And their quarterback is But I do just have them winning because I don't have Cardinals. First of all, I don't have Cardinals coming out and getting a win week 1 because they're my number 1 worst team. But I also think that Terry McLaurin is a really good wide receiver, and he's fast, has clean routes, and he can make clutch plays for you. And with that, just Jahan Dotson, I think those two are going to be a good core. And whoever their quarterback is this season, I think they're going to have some good weapons. Also at running back, I think their running back is still undetermined, but I think they're good all around. Their defense, they have Chase Young. They have a really good secondary. They have Jonathan Allen. And all those players, I think, are just going to not demolish, but still beat the Cardinals enough where the Cardinals aren't even going to come close. Next up, I have Houston at Baltimore. And I was thinking, maybe C.J. Stroud could come out and put some magic on. But I was like, no. Lamar, Odell, that defense is going to shut down last year's second worst team in the NFL and last year. But as I'm saying, I think Houston will not get like skunked, like 0 to like 30. I think it will be like around like 20 to like 35, right? I think they will score maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns with C.J. Stroud. I'm not saying C.J. Stroud's going to have the best opener. I just don't think he's going to have a horrible opener, even though he didn't look too good against the Patriots that one preseason game. Lamar, he's coming back, and Lamar is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's some of you might say that it's hard to say that, but because he's been injured. But Lamar, we can't forget that he won the MVP not too long ago. And he could win the MVP this year. I'm not saying, it's Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, all those really good, young, nice players. I'm saying Lamar does have a chance, though, to have a breakout year this year. Next up, I have Green Bay at Chicago. And even though I have Green Bay at the bottom of that division, the only reason I have them down there is because they don't have Devontae Adams and they don't have Aaron Rodgers. They do have Christian Watson, and Christian Watson is a good all-around receiver. He's tall, he's fast, and he can make plays. I just don't think that's going to get them top of their division. And, they have the Lions and the Vikings. I don't think they're getting past that. But Chicago and Green Bay, I think this will be a good game to see what Justin Fields has. I think this is easy. I'm not saying it's super easy for the Bears. I'm just saying that the Bears are going to win this game by a little. Next up, I have Las Vegas at Denver. And Jimmy G versus Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. Broncos country, let's ride. Russell Wilson, I don't think he's going to have as bad as the year he had last year. I'm not saying he was horrible last year, even though he kind of was. I'm saying that he's not going to have a breakout game. I have Las Vegas winning this because Jimmy Garoppolo is clutch enough to win you a game. It's just when you're in the NFC Championship, he's not going to do so well. And we've seen in the NFC Championship when he throws a pick on his own 15-yard line. That happened a couple years ago against the Rams. And he was our quarterback. I think if we had Brock Purdy that year, we would have won the Super Bowl. Not being biased, I think Brock Purdy would have led us to a Super Bowl if he played how he played last year. And he didn't break his UCL. Still don't know what that is. It's part of your arm. But I know that Vegas, they have Devontae Adams, they have Jimmy Garoppolo, Max Crosby. They have a stacked defense. I think they're just going to tear apart Denver. I'm not saying they'll destroy, but they are going to win by a little bit. Next up, I have Philadelphia at New England. And if I'm being honest, yeah, I had Philly absolutely demolishing them. And even though I'm not a Philly fan, I do think that Philly isn't a bottom 15 team. I think they're top 10, and I think that they can go far. I do not think they deserve to go to the Super Bowl last year. I think I'm not saying it was all luck. I'm not trying to put too much hate on Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith and their defense. I'm just saying that's the defense that, severely hurt Brock Purdy. And if you hurt Brock Purdy, you're not a fan of mine. So, even though I do have the Eagles destroying the Patriots, and Mac Jones just sucks, and I don't want to go on him like Baker Mayfield. I wasn't trying to go on Baker Mayfield that hard. He's just not good. And that's the same with Mac Jones. And Patriots fans, I have a best friend named Johnny. He's on my football team. He's a major Patriots fan, and he loves Mac Jones. So he's wearing his Mac Jones jersey. I'm like, are you proud of wearing that? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, you shouldn't be. Mac Jones, I'm not trying to hate on Patriots fans. I'm just saying Mac Jones isn't going to take you to the Super Bowl, and I don't think he's going to take you to a playoff berth either. Next up, I have Miami at the Chargers. And this one could go either way. We saw him play last year. It was a really good game. But as I'm saying, Justin Herbert and Tua. Tua might hurt his head. We don't know. But I know I'm not a Herbert fanboy, but I think Herbert is really good. And Herbert can win games for you. But at the same time, the Dolphins have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey. Even though Jalen Ramsey got hurt in training camp, I think he'll be okay. Maybe start week 2, maybe even week 3. But if they do have Jalen Ramsey, that secondary is really good. And Xavier Howard isn't even close to Jalen Ramsey's level. But not much people talk about this guy, but Javon Holland. He's not only really good at Madden, but he's young, and I think he's actually pretty good. He hasn't shown much, but that secondary of the Dolphins is super good. That front seven isn't the best in the league, but it can get past that O-line of the Chargers and get some sacks on Justin Herbert. But at the same time, I have the Chargers winning that game. Next up, I have the Rams and Seattle. And I do have Seattle winning this one. And I did have to think just a little bit. And then I thought, it's Geno and Metcalf and DK Metcalf versus Stafford and Cup. And that's the Rams are the team that won the Super Bowl. But what happened last year? They weren't acting like back-to-back Super Bowl champions. And I think they're going to go max wins at 9. I do not have them making above the 7th seed in the NFC. I don't have them getting past the wild card round, much likely going to the Super Bowl. If they go to I would bet my entire football card collection on the Rams not make. If they make the Super Bowl, I will burn this hat. And this is my favorite hat. That's how confident I am that the Rams are not going to do so good this year. I'm not trying to put too much hate on the Rams, but the Seahawks, I think, will just pull away on this one. And next up, I have Dallas and the Giants. And Dallas and the Giants, this one, I do have Dallas, but I'm not saying the Giants would win and it's going to be a good game. I think the Cowboys are going to win 30 to under. I don't think the Giants and Daniel Jones can get past that defense, even with Saquon. I think Saquon's going to have a really good year this year. But that Cowboys defense, don't love the Cowboys too much, but you got to give them respect. They have a really good defense and a pretty good offense. So I think the Cowboys are going to win this game. And lastly, this is the hardest game, the Buffalo at Jets. And the reason I have Buffalo, there's a lot of hype around the Jets, they're going to do really good. Show me that they're going to do really good. And I do think the Jets are going to be one of maybe even top 5 teams and maybe getting even to the AFC Championship. But Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and that defense and offense has to show me that they are what we're talking about. That's why I have Buffalo winning. If New York, if I'm talking week 2 right now and New York played really good, I would probably have New York winning this game. But where do I start? Josh Allen, Madden 24 cover. No wonder why they put him on the cover. I do think there were better options. I don't want to get into Madden right now. I do think they had better options, like maybe Brock Purdy, Debo. But I think it's a good cover. But Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, that scary defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL. And I think Buffalo, I think it's going to be a close game, probably 20 to 17 around that range. But I do have them winning. Those are my NFL Week 1 predictions. Leave a comment what you think and hit the bell to be the first one, maybe even the first one to watch my result video. And I'm going to be going through all these games and the result and the score of those games. Make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment on what you think. Peace out.